So why would one of the CIA's top interrogators suddenly go public and do his hand-wringing mixed emotions pass the smell test? We'll talk to another CIA alum. And nightmare at Halliburton headquarters Baghdad. This employee claims she was gang raped by other Halliburton workers in Iraq, and they may slip through the legal cracks in both that country and this one. You are watching Countdown on MSNBC. Could be that it's just coincidence, a fluke of timing. 4 days after the CIA admits to having destroyed videotape evidence of Abu Zubaydah being waterboarded. An ex-CIA officer tells the media how well the waterboarding worked, even though he wasn't present for the torture, even though he wasn't present for the confessions, and even though other CIA and FBI operatives have said that the suspect, Zubaydah, had little information and was mentally unbalanced. Our fourth story on the Countdown, looking for the truth behind the torture story. John Kiriakou was part of the team that captured Zubaydah, says he was the first person to actually talk to him, but he says Zubaydah would not talk voluntarily, asked Kiriakou to smother him. Instead, Kiriakou turned him over to CIA colleagues who were trained in so-called enhanced techniques. Mr. Kiriakou taking pains to emphasize that while he was not a part of the actual waterboarding team, he believed it was necessary at the time, though he had, conveniently, qualms about it afterwards, even though, as he told Matt Lauer this morning on the Today Show, he believes it is torture.
I think, yes, torture. I'm not saying that it wasn't necessary at the time, and I'll let the lawyers decide if it's legal or not, but at the time I think it was necessary to disrupt terrorist attacks. I know that there was a high-level policy debate on whether or not this was torture, and that the Department of Justice and the White House Counsel and the National Security Council decided that it was not at the time. It's something that a lot of us at the agency struggled with as these decisions were being made and implemented. We wanted to do anything we could to disrupt future terrorist American soil, but at the same time, you have to sleep with yourself.
Mr. Kiriakou also insisting in each of his now surprisingly large number of interviews, NBC, ABC, CNN, The Washington Post, that after 35 seconds of waterboarding, Zubaydah started sharing information that disrupted, quote, maybe dozens of attacks. Though he could not recall where said attacks were supposed to take place, or even in which country, because he had moved on to a new assignment by then. I'm joined now by another former CIA agent, Jack Rice. Jack, good to talk to you. Thanks for your time tonight.
Good evening.
One first question about logic and logistics. Mr. Kiriakou had moved on to another job stateside before the waterboarding actually began. He wasn't there for the confessions. How would he know how effective it had been or hadn't been? Is he overstating how much he would know about the results, or would he have been kept in the loop somehow?
I think he could have tried to have been kept in the loop, but does he really know? The answer is no. I mean, it sounds great. The real problem in the end, though, Keith, is what we're really arguing is the same old question we've always been talking about before. If it's effective, is it okay to torture? And in the end, if we're actually asking that question and we come up with the wrong answer, it says a lot more about us than it does about anybody else.
But is it effective? If he can't give you an idea from firsthand knowledge of what all this, the stuff that this man confessed to, how do we know that the real issue of torture, you don't even have to go to the moral questions first. You go to the results question first, right? And the results generally are, you may get some actual information in there, but you have no idea what's information and what is stuff that's created to just stop the torture.
You're absolutely right. Again, we've seen research over decades. And what we find is that people will say whatever is necessary. Again, I can hook you up to jumper cables and you'll swear to me that you're Justin Timberlake. You will, because you want it to stop. And if that's how we're going to decide how we make a determination on the intelligence that we get, we're in much worse trouble than we think.
Your big picture on his sudden appearance, he said this afternoon in the latest of these interviews, that he thought the waterboarding represented a real intelligence success. Does that necessarily mean he's being disingenuous when he describes the mixed emotions that he saw, that he felt, or makes the claim that we're better than this, or that we shouldn't torture again? Could all these things be true?
I'm not a conspiracy nut. I never have been, and I don't know this man. But my problem is it comes back to this concept where we'll say it's okay to torture because we got the answer that we wanted. But see, that in itself tells us the broader question, and the biggest concern of all is what we want is a particular answer. If I hook you up to something, if I use water, if I use electricity, if I use all sorts of various techniques, quote unquote, that means I get what I want. We don't want just the things that we want. We want the truth. It's about the effectiveness of it, and that's the fundamental question, let alone the moral question.
What's the headline then, Jack, from what he's said as he's come forward? Is it A, waterboarding works, B, we needed to do it then but we should never do it again, or is the ultimate thing that he's saying here is this is what we did and the White House approved it event by event?
I don't know what the answer is to that, Keith. But what I do know is, and this is maybe the broader answer to everything that happens next, what we have found is from the administration, from those at the policy level, they've been saying to the agents, those in the field, be aggressive, think outside of the box, do what you need to do. The problem is when things start to get ugly, like right now with the conversation you and I are having, what happens is all those people at the policy level then scurry to the bushes. What makes it worse now is that all of those operatives, all of those CIA case officers who are in the field are watching this too, saying, you know what, I'm not going to be the guy who puts my butt on the line now either, so I'm going to pull back. I'm not going to be the guy who thinks outside of the box. That's what happened prior to 9/11. We're going to face the very same problem we saw after Iran-Contra and before 9/11. It's coming again because we don't have leadership saying, these are the things we do, here's the bright line you take, and you push right up to that edge.
Right, and we will take the heat with you if there's a problem afterwards, which is clearly no matter what is right and what is wrong here, we know that much. No administration, no one involved in it are getting involved in taking the heat right now. The former CIA officer,
for courage, huh?
Indeed. Jack Rice. Thanks, Jack. Good night.